Rafael, Cr'aig.
He's late, man. He showed up late.
We summoned you literally 4 minutes ago, and you now just pop up into the channel, just
Yeah.
out of the blue.
Yeah, when I asked for my coffee, I expect it immediately. Not 4 minutes late. It's cold. I want different coffee. Go get me good coffee.
Give me those Colombian Doom beans.
No, I hate coffee. We all know this.
Do we?
It's my test to see if Cr'aig is actually Cr'aig or if it's Giark. If he actually goes and gets me coffee, it's Giark.
He just comes back with like a cup full of gasoline and a match.
I hear you like that.
Well, I'm Christopher. That's Jay. I'm sick, so I apologize if there's any sniffling in the podcast today. I'll try to make sure it doesn't happen.
You sound all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm still alive.
I'm still here. I was playing Pathfinder Kingmaker when you messaged me that you wanted to record.
Oh, it sounds like a horrible, horrible afternoon.
No, it's been a wonderful afternoon. It's wonderful and frustrating because, well, it's a D&D game basically. Sure, it uses the
Pathfinder
rules.
game.
Yeah, it uses the Pathfinder rules, which are the D&D rules. They were the 3.5 rules.
But like, is it like Pathfinder or 3.5, where like if you build your character wrong, it is absolutely and utterly useless for the rest of the campaign?
Oh, probably.
Okay.
But it's really hard to build a character wrong. Like, it's not impossible. It is more possible than it is in 5th, for sure, because you have so many more options. As well, they have taken great care in 5th edition to sort of nullify everything so that everything is bland and equal. Every class is equal. All the spells do the same amounts of damage at certain intervals. Like there's nothing even a little out of whack. 3rd edition, they didn't take that approach.
It's really weird because like it's a weird kind of mentality. It's like the more you want everything to be equal, the harder it is to get it there, and the more bland it becomes. Like you look at World of Warcraft with all its different classes, and everyone complaining like, "Well, my Frost Mage spec can't do the same damage as that Demonology spec over there for the Warlock," and oh my God, the Fury Warriors can't out DPS the Rogues, and like at one point in time when WoW was just fresh, like Warriors were tanks. All stop. Rogues were damage. All stop.
Yeah.
There was one spec you could be as the mage, and it was Frost spec. If you wanted to respec out of Frost spec, so you did Fire spec during the week, and Frost spec for raids, well, it's going to cost you 400 gold, and gold was really hard to come by. And at one point in time, you kind of look back on that and go, well, that sucked, but it was really a lot of fun because you had your role, you played your role, and it was there, and you did that. But nowadays you have all these classes that are like 0.5% of each other, and the only difference between one and the other class is what meter you're watching tick up and what buttons and how you're pressing it.
Yeah.
And it's really boring and just very droll to me personally.
Yeah.
Like
go ahead, finish.
You could play a rogue that has combo points, but Paladin also has holy points. And then when you really get down to it, that rage bar is just, since it ticks up in a very integral amount, you could pretty much say that that's points as well too. I'm stretching it, I know, but
it really is. It's you're if I recall right, and it's been a long time since I played WoW, but you effectively burn your rage to do things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally exactly what the rogue does. You burn your combo points to do things.
And but it used to be, it's like you got rage by the amount of damage you dealt and the amount that you received. The receive was the big part. So you would kind of have to like build into it and get rolling. And once you were rolling, you couldn't stop. Whereas Rogue was kind of like, we start off here and we kind of have like these short, like little spikes. Yeah. But now because rage is normalized, and it doesn't matter how much damage you do, every swing gives you the same amount of rage. It's just okay. When 3 melee attacks happen, I get to use this skill. Well, it's not exactly combo points. It's
still
exactly
combo
combo
points. Yeah.
points. Yeah, you have more
and
of them.
I'm not. I am obviously. I have no plans on complaining about 5e
Yeah,
too much because I do love 5e. It's been a lot of fun. I still enjoy the game. I'm going to keep running the game, but it, it's it is bland by comparison.
yeah. At the end of the day, you have a couple differences between each of the classes, and it's just kind of like flavor of how points work. Like the warlocks, the sorcerers, and wizards kind of all kind of blend together once you get to a high enough level.
So
Like, yeah, they all got nifty differences, but they all kind of do the
they're
same thing.
yeah, warlocks I think are very different, but I also think warlocks are almost the exact same as rangers. They
To
are
a
they
degree,
are
yeah.
the ranger of the spellcasting class. They're going to stand there and they're going to do one thing, just like a ranger. A ranger's going to sit there and shoot arrows at things, and the warlock's just going to stand back and throw Eldritch Blast at things.
Yep.
Now, as an example of how things were so much different just in this video game alone, and mind you, the video game barely touches on anything that's actually available for Pathfinder or D&D 3.5. You get to play 6 different characters, and there's a lot of different characters you can choose from. You actually get to swap in and out, changing your party occasionally, which I have had to do a couple of times. The party I am currently running is a tank. And when I say tank, I mean literal tank. This character has, at 6th level, I have 92 hit points. I have an armor class of 31, which is not. That would be comparable to, say, a 23 or 24 AC in 5e. So it's a ridiculously high armor class. They don't deal squat for damage, but I don't need them to. I send them out first. Everything sort of rushes to them and then can't hit them for the most part. My clerics, I sit back. I don't do anything with the cleric. I just heal. That's it. Very, very different from everything else. I have a ranger, which does exactly what I said rangers do. He stands there and shoots 3 arrows around. Then there's the bard. There's a arcane trickster, which is basically a mage rogue, and then I have a fighter mage. They call him a magus, but it's just a fighter mage. He buffs himself up. He runs in, attacks, and throws a spell in the attack. And none of these feel the same. Every one of them has their strengths. Every one of them has their weaknesses. And it's very, very different. Even because I have multiple clerics, all of them play and feel very different from each other.
Yeah. There are a few builds in 5e that are very uniquely different. Like,
there's some,
if you want to play a tank, like you play Ancestral Guardian Barbarian, and you're playing a very weird tank that is reminiscent of how fighters worked in 4th edition.
Or you play Totem Barbarian and just have stupid amounts of hit points.
No, what I mean by tanking is in 4th edition, you could mark a target, okay? And just dealing damage. It was like a free action to mark, I believe, or if you hit them with an attack, you marked them, okay? And if they decided to hit anyone else other than you, they had like disadvantage on the attack, and there were a bunch of other negatives that went along with it. So you're pretty much, it's a weird taunting mechanics. Like, I'm hitting you, you can hit anybody you want, but I'm going to get a chance to hit you. You're going to have disadvantage on attacking them. I might be able to basically knock you over, etc., etc. And I think the only class in 5th edition that has anything like that is the Astral Guardian Barbarian, where their little astral protectors pop out and like do that same kind of marking thing to them.
Yeah.
So like when it comes to all the classes in 5e, I think that's the only one that has like a reliable taunting mechanic built in.
That's because the vast majority of D&D players hated taunting. They hate the taunt mechanic, they don't necessarily hate the taunt skill,
Yeah.
because Kinder at third edition had a taunt skill. I want to say there was another race, kobolds, I think is what it was, were able to learn a taunt skill. And because they had pluses and minuses in third edition as opposed to just advantage, disadvantage, it worked a little better because you could do this to something and, oh, it has a -2 to its attack if it's not attacking you. But it was literally you're just taunting them. It's not a fighter running in straight out of World of Warcraft, pulling aggro on everything and then just trying to suck it up. It
Yeah.
it feels different.
Yeah. There's a paladin spell. It's like where like you basically taunt them and they're supposed to divinely smite you now, and that's what the spell is. But like the DM could just choose to attack anybody else and you just get disadvantage on the attack.
Yeah.
So like, oh wow. Ooh. I
Well,
always kind of didn't like that there wasn't a really good taunting mechanic in fifth edition. I
yep.
mean, you're not gonna, but good assassins aren't gonna go for the plate mail wearer.
I
They're gonna go,
mean,
oh
yeah.
shit, that level 3 Tortolan has 25 AC. I ain't gonna fight him.
Yeah, honestly, you're gonna go for the spellcasters most of the time if you're able to or smart about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
you take out the wizard or the cleric first. That's just the rule. Uh,
yeah.
providing disadvantage if they're not attacking though is pretty big.
I don't know. Like, I love this advantage and disadvantage. So don't get me wrong. I think it's great. Mathematically, if you give me disadvantage on something, I could care less. Honestly, as a DM, and I think it happens a lot.
my
Or like
players
if I
give
have,
my players give me disadvantage on shit all the time, and I will not land. I will not.
yeah, mathematically, it's only a -5% chance. That's it. That's what it is, just mathematically. And so, like I said, the paladin skill and there's a few other skills that, like, if a player does that to the DM in an attempt to draw aggro or kind of like draw the heat or get them to focus me, the plate wearer, instead of somebody else, a lot of the times they'll just ignore it. And I tend to, when I notice that happen, I tend to kind of go with the intent of the ability and go after that person,
Mhm.
because they're using up a resource or they're using an ability, and it feels real shitty if the DM does it. Like the DM did it to me once, and it felt real shitty. But it kind of made sense to the DM because the creature I did it to was a berserker. So he was like, I kind of went with, it's a berserker. It's just going to keep hitting the same target until it dies,
But yeah,
and it's already been attacking that one.
plus disadvantage on something berserking. I would
Right?
imagine they're
Doesn't
raging. It doesn't do much
it doesn't do
because
much?
yeah,
Yeah,
they don't get advantage, but they're still just rolling straight at that point.
yeah. And so why would he? And I agree with him. It's like, why would you then? But I tend to find like if there's a player or something that does something to draw the attention, I kind of do like my own like internal passive like insight check to see if they would fall for that kind of like taunting or that kind of like, oh, I'm going to go over there and attack that guy. More than just like give disadvantage.
Well, this is actually a good discussion to have because I think every DM sort of has their own method of determining what's getting attacked by what.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, I don't have any of this written down. This is just sort of my logic when doing things. If It will depend sort of on how many things I'm running and the intelligence level of the monsters. So, assuming I'm running humanoid PCs, they're human equivalent intelligence, they're going to try to take out the biggest threats the fastest, which is not going to be the tank. It's not going to be the fighters. They're going to try to get to the spellcasters. If a tank starts taunting them, I'm probably still going for the spellcasters. Now, if that tank runs in and attacks and hits for like 40 damage, okay, I'm going to stand there and I'm going to fight that tank because that's a threat. But until the tank or the rogue or whoever has made them aware of how big of a threat they are, spellcasters top the list.
Right. I mean, it's a weird kind of methodology because we're all used to the hero syndrome from like watching movies and reading books and whatnot. Like when you send your main characters out into the field with all the rabble around them. Okay, everyone's gonna kind of go after the heroes because that's what they do. You kind of like almost like take off the head of the snake, and as it were, and all the casters on the far back, doing their thing. So when you start thinking about it tactically, yeah, okay, so you have me, a big, huge frontline sword and board fighter. Why would you fight him when you could fight anyone else who's not that big with that massive wall of shield in front of him?
Yeah,
I'm gonna go fight that guy over there.
the exception to that is sort of the challenge of it.
Right.
As you know, I run hobgoblins a lot, and hobgoblins are a warlike race. They love the challenge of combat.
Yeah.
So in a scenario like that, yeah, they very well might want to go toe to toe with you because if they beat you, that's glory upon them.
Right. But then also too, like if you think about it tactically, you want to basically pull the front line away from the people that we're supposed to be protecting. So you send one or two guys at him to kind of basically just fight him defensively and pull him away a little bit.
Yeah,
and then
sort
you
of
go
hold
straight
them
for
in
the heal.
place. Yep.
Yeah. And that's why my favorite fights when we're at the LARP are always the pavilion, because I can stand in the middle of the pavilion and have reach to the wall to wall, so no one can get by me without me hitting them one way or another.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yeah, they get like there's about a 5-foot gap they might be able to squeeze through if they're lucky. That's assuming you don't take a 5-foot step.
yeah, and like you see it a lot of times too, where like where armies and the movies kind of clash in on each other, and there's like no one kind of like skirting around that line. They kind of doing like an actual flanking maneuver to kind of crush the line and bring them in, like you would have like if you played Rome Total War or a game like that.
Oh yeah.
We have these big kind of epic battles. That's what happens all the time. That kind of makes sense. But when you kind of scale this now down to a party of 5, you're really just the rule of assassination kind of applies, where you just go after the weakest target first.
Yep.
No matter who it may be.
Yeah. Speaking of the Roman, I came across a prestige an archetype earlier today. It's a fighter archetype called the Hoplite, and it's
Yeah.
literally the whole thing is based off of shield and spear, as it should be. The first ability you get, it's basically utilizing the shield to give everybody within 5 feet of you partial cover. So
Huh.
they get everybody just it's not all the time, but you can use like your reaction to give everybody around you partial cover for a turn or something like that. The I want to say it was the 15th level ability. They all get half cover.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very, very. There was another ability where if somebody else was next to you with the shield, you could effectively extend that to them, so that they could then give people next to them, within 5 feet of them, get the partial cover.
There's nothing better than a good fully formed phalanx.
Yeah, it's just a nice little shield wall. I would. It would be kind of fun to play that.
Oh yeah, I'd
Maybe
play that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, you play well if everybody plays like shield users and you have just like one wizard in the back or something. And at that point, just everybody has complete. You get partial cover, and later on at higher levels, you get half cover. Your ACs would just be through the damn roof because of it.
Yeah. And then Fireball happens, but I'm sure there's something to defend against Fireball. Everyone has shield mastery at that point in time.
Yeah, they would have to take the feat for that. But yeah, there wasn't an ability they got, but the feat is still available.
So yeah, so when it comes to like focusing down targets, a lot depends on the monster I'm playing and what the scenario kind of is at that time of the map. Playing how a monster really is very important. Your CR 1 to 5 basic undead are not gonna go to the back line to get the healers first. They're just gonna go to the closest life force and eat that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know.
if it look at the intelligence of the monster in the stat block. If its intelligence is 6 or less, it's not going to consider tactics. It's going to hit probably the nearest target. Uh, a lot of the monsters, even in the monster manual, they'll have at least a little bit of info as to how they like to fight. Like griffins. Griffins love eating horses. So just think of it in that terms. It's a stupid animal, but if it sees a horse, it's probably going to attack the mount first before the rider.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah, just always sort of keep in mind how smart is that monster, and then how it's going to react because of its intelligence level. The smarter the monster, the more strategic it's going to be.
Now, if you have a bunch of, like, say, human assassins or humanoid assassins going after a specific party member, well, they're going to wait for that one time where that party member's all by themselves for whatever reason, and then 5v1 them.
Yeah,
Yep.
I
And
mean,
it'd be really bad if that happens, but
assassinations in reality, that's kind of how it tends to go down. You just sort of wait for that opportune moment, and sometimes it might take 6 weeks, but yeah, if somebody really wants to kill someone, they'll find a way. So if you've got assassins coming after one certain player, while the D&D way to do it would just be to have them show up, kick in the door, and try to kill everybody in the room, it's not the realistic way to do it. The realistic way to do it was be wait until you catch him off alone at the baths in some town. Walk in there, shank him a few times, and then leave.
yeah, I think the better story, because you are playing with the table. I think the better way of doing that would almost be like to poison the member. Like, so let's say they all go to a bar together, and they poison that one person's food. So when he eats it or drinks it or whatnot, he falls over, dying out. And then you could let the healer or whatever continuously stabilize this person, essentially.
Yeah.
And as the other ones try to root out what exactly happened, or there's a bigger fight or something, and they'll probably bring in the whole table, because you hate to have a one-on-one session with 4 people just sitting there not doing anything.
Don't ever do that. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
bad idea.
But if a
But
player wants a player offed, permanently, that's a way to do it. Just
I
in
was
the path,
I was
shank
reading
shank.
I was reading a horror story on the DM resources page. DM asking for advice on that because he has one player who really and truly just sort of hogs the time, and like he'll go off on his own and do 2 hours worth of stuff while everybody else just sits there. If you ever have players who try to do that and hog the time, don't allow that. You are the DM. You have control over that. I am very controlling when it comes to the amount of time everybody gets. Like, if players are running off doing their side thing, because oftentimes when a party gets to town, they'll run into 3 different directions because one player wants to go talk to this contact, this player wants to go shopping, this player needs to talk to this other person, and I will give them about 5 or 10 minutes each, and then just sort of keep bouncing between them until everything is wrapped up.
Yeah.
Gives everybody playtime.
So I had to look this up while you were explaining that. There's a book out there called, I think it's The Monsters Aren't Stupid.
Oh yeah, I think I've come across this before.
And if the idea of what a monster would do is too hard, that book, and I think it's a blog series too, or it may just be a blog series, um, kind of goes in and explains each monster, like what they would do, how they would act. From this author's just kind of like general tactics, but it is a good resource if you ever are looking for something. Yeah, the website's called themonstersknow.com. And
Yeah, it's
then,
it's the monsters know what they are doing. Ready to
yeah,
use tactics for D&D 5e.
yep. And the whole blog is 100% dedicated to just tactics from different kind of monsters. And looks like he's done a bunch for dragon tactics because the book just came out.
Yeah, I see deep dragons, sea serpents, great worms, gem dragons. The top one that popped up was giant. tactics, and it actually details out the tactics of all of the different types of giants.
So to kind of answer the question, it kind of really honestly depends on the monster or the scenario or what you're doing. If you're running a very highly political game, how you attack players is going to be very different. Probably all just like Game of Thrones ish.
Yeah, seems likely.
And then it ends
Just
very poorly.
nothing but red weddings over and over again.
That'd be a horrible campaign. It's a campaign where like every 3 sessions ends in a red wedding
Yeah,
for the players.
it sounds like a first edition D&D game, honestly. All right, you're going to start in this campaign. I want everybody to roll up 10 characters right now. All right, you're playing one of these, but just keep the other 9 for backups.
Yeah, I want to play a new class I haven't played before. I'm going to play a dwarf. That's a
No,
race, right? Nope, it's class.
no, see that is not first edition Dungeons and Dragons. That's
Oh,
Redbox. That's basic Dungeons and Dragons.
whatever.
No, it is there is advanced Dungeons and Dragons and there is basic Dungeons and Dragons. They are not the same.
Fuck it, I'm playing chainmail.
That's not even a role playing game. That's so much as just a miniature combat game. I mean, yeah, that's really all it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I started with Redbox, which was basic Dungeons and Dragons, and there were 7 classes: fighter, mage, cleric, rogue, elf, halfling, and dwarf.
I just love halfling and dwarf. I kind of love that halfling and dwarf are just like their own classes.
Yep.
Because like at the end of the day, you're just like, oh yeah, they're all fighters or they're all rogues. Yeah, I get it. It's very Tolkien.
Yes. Yeah. The elves were fighter mages. That's exactly what they were. The dwarves were fighters. The halflings were sort of fighter rogues. And
I like that.
there was some weirdness about it too because you had level caps for those 3. I don't remember
Yeah.
the exact numbers, but I think dwarves couldn't go above like 9th level. Elves could never get above like 7th. Halflings were somewhere in that range as well. But everybody else could go to 30th level. Damn, it's good to be a human.
He just didn't develop it. They just they didn't even think about it.
No, they thought about it. They thought because this person can do fighting and magic that they're just that much more powerful than everybody else, which was definitely not the case.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess it made sense for all those old timers.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, I started with it. I played it for a while, and after about a year or so, I went to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and never looked back.
So going back to that subclass you talked about with the hoplite.
Yeah.
How often do you use partial cover, half cover, full cover in your games? How
Often.
often do you let players who want it go out and get it?
Often. Yeah.
Often? Okay.
Yeah. I actually do. Yeah, not super all the time, but if like I can think of at least a couple of encounters recently in the past 2 game sessions where I've used it. My players were fighting against a bunch of hobgoblin archers. They were actually hobgoblin rangers, and they were fighting in the woods. And they just kept jumping behind trees, so they'd get half cover a lot of the time. Yeah, up until
Okay.
the point my players actually were able to catch up to them and move next to them. But like all their ranged attacks, they just had half cover.
Yeah,
Do you
I
use it
don't.
often?
I if a player wants it, I kind of give it to them. Um, unless they're like, oh well, there's one bag of like cow feed on the ground. Can I just crouch behind it and get cover? No, no,
No.
no.
No. Oh, and you also can't hide behind other people for cover.
See, that's bullshit. Because we do that all the time with me.
You are absolutely correct. It works in real life. It really should in the game.
I mean, don't halflings get that as an ability?
Uh, I I think they do. Honestly, I am unsure. I think they do, but I think they're the only ones.
And it wouldn't
Half,
make sense that other small races would get the same benefit. Like if you're playing a fairy and you're small, or you're playing a Haragon and you're small, and you just want to like ride on the back of a Goliath, you should get full cover.
no, no, they do not. They can move through the space of any creature that is a size larger than them.
Okay.
So, but that includes enemies. Whereas normally you can always move through your own party's spaces, but you can't ever move through the enemy spaces except as a halfling. Now, it doesn't necessarily prevent attacks of opportunity, but no, okay, there it is. The Lightfoot halfling. You can attempt to hide even when you're obscured only by a creature that is at least one size larger than you.
Yeah, I knew it was there somewhere.
Yeah. So it's not that you get cover. It's just you can attempt to take the hide action if there's just people bigger than you in the way.
Same kind of logic, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That should honestly apply to all small races.
Yeah, probably should. Not maybe not. I don't think dwarves count as small races though, but
No, they're
uh
medium.
yeah, but like halflings, gnomes,
Kobolds,
kobolds,
goblins.
yeah. Goblins are not small race.
They can be, I think.
No, well, they're either one or the other.
Mm. Remember, Mordenkainen's changed everything recently.
I still don't. Yeah, I don't have it right here in front of me, so I'm trying to look it up online. Size. No, okay, they are small. I am pretty sure they weren't. And if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings, they definitely are not small.
Well, I mean, that's an ongoing question. Like, what are goblins in your universe? Because they're all different no matter where you go. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, that's fair. I think you should kind of run from the core material, which was Lord of the Rings, and yeah, they were 4 to 5 feet tall, for my understanding, which is not small. But no, I mean you're right. Everybody sort of has their own thoughts on it. For in my world, they are absolutely like medium sized.
yeah, in my head, they're all because World of Warcraft was like my first introduction to the fantasy settings. That's the size of goblins. Whenever I envision them, they're about like waist high on a human. And like even when I think of like Harry Potter and a few other like things like that, they're all about that size. 3 to 4 feet, kind of size.
Yeah, were goblins that small in Warcraft? I don't remember them
Yep.
being that small.
Yeah, they were tiny little guys.
Trying to find a picture of them right now, and for some reason having a hard time of it.
You go to Google and you hit
I'm on
World of
Google. There it
Warcraft
is. Okay, yeah, they were.
Goblin.
Yeah, they were like half sized.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I probably played. Actually, I know I played one because they had the was it Tinkerer or Artificer or something like that I played around with for a little bit.
They had Shaman. That was about it.
I don't
They
know.
don't have a.
Maybe it
They,
was I think it was a
they,
hunter, but I did engineering. That's what it was.
yeah, of course, because that's what you do when you're a goblin in
Yeah,
Warcraft. You're an
yeah,
engineer.
yeah. For some reason, they all know how to build steam machines. I don't understand this.
Well, I like World of Warcraft's goblins versus gnomes kind of thing, where the goblins build big bombs and like very destructive explosive things that or very kind of aggressive things like a tree like a robot that will just the forest and an entire forest, and the goblin or the gnomes will build something to deforest the entire forest, but it's gonna turn all the trees into like antimatter or something like that, or have them all
Yeah,
chopped up in the process. Both absolutely destructive on both ends. It's just one will explode and one will just deatomize you.
yeah. Yeah, if you go into World of Warcraft, and watch sort of the goblin tree cutters, the loggers, and all that, it looks like it's straight out of Warhammer 40K. Like
Yeah, it really
everything
is.
is just long, machines with buzz saws on them that chop trees up. it's kind of ridiculous and kind of awesome at the same time. But I don't necessarily feel that it fits most D&D settings.
No, definitely not. My favorite thing is there's a gnomish head device you can make that will polymorph a target, but it has a chance of backfiring and polymorphing you instead.
I mean, that's appropriate. That's every gnome ever.
And there's like goblin running shoes that basically just rocket strapped to your feet,
Oh,
and
I
so like
remember those. Yeah.
and like 10% of the times they'll just explode and launch you into the air, so you fall to your death.
Yep.
uh,
Yeah. There
yeah,
are some.
that's how I like That's how I like my goblins. A little bit mischievous, smarter than you think, and not totally chaotic evil, but definitely in that camp.
Definitely chaotic.
Eh,
Maybe not necessarily evil, but definitely chaotic. Uh, yeah, like most of the time, if I'm running goblins as a DM, I'm running them just sort of as the chaotic evil versions from Lord of the Rings.
yeah,
If I'm playing a goblin, I do tend to go more towards what you're describing.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know specifically why that's the case, but it definitely is.
It feels better.
Probably, yeah. So maybe it's just the normal goblins. Your standard goblins are just chaos, smash, kill, blah blah blah, and then there's the outliers who are a little smarter, and that's just you play them differently because of that.
So back to my question about partial cover and full cover.
Yeah, yeah.
After the gnome and goblin
The great
sidetrack,
gnome goblin debate.
I tend to find that whenever a player wants to actually get cover, I'll give them cover, and I will make a ruling on how much cover they get.
Yeah.
Now, I know there are a lot of DMs out there who don't like giving cover at all unless you're like in a place to get cover from, like very hardcore cover.
Mhm.
And like there are a couple times where like I've been playing this Frostmaiden again, so people are like, I'm gonna like push some snow up in front of me, lay down prone on the ground, and get half cover from that.
No,
I'm
no.
like, all right, cool, you can do that, but you're gonna have to get into the snow, and then now you're prone, and you have some snow in front of you, so now they have disadvantage. Sure, you have partial cover from the ranged attacks, and then I'll just march the orc right over to them, and
Yes.
then chopping them in the back. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
did this to you.
Yeah. Partial cover. I allow people to get partial cover if it is possible they could have partial cover. If you are fighting in a room where there's tables and chairs and all sorts of other stuff, I will probably allow you to get partial cover. If you're out in an open field somewhere, don't even ask. If there's no trees nearby, if there's just nothing there, I'm not going to allow it. I'm much more lenient about allowing partial cover than half cover.
Yeah.
If there's tables and chairs, without kicking a table over, you're not getting half cover. If you turn one over, all right, you might.
So let's go with it. Go with the table debate here. Um, to play devil's advocate, I walk into your house. You have a standard sized dining room table. I kick over the table, and I'm using this now as cover.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, I'm a very big guy, so let's not say it's not me personally. It's your average height man, a 6'1"
Right. So,
dude.
so
Okay.
me.
Okay. Now, to get cover behind a table, which is about 3 feet tall at this point in time, you're going to have to crouch. You're going to have to basically be on your knees or sitting down to get some kind of cover from that table.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if you're crouched behind it, okay, like you see in the movies, and you pretty much have full cover because your head's not peeking out over it. But if I just kick a table and it's just laying there in front of me, okay, what's the difference between a table being between me and you, and now me knocking the table over, and now being between me and you when it comes into place of cover?
Well, the table being upright, like it's normally sitting, there's a large opening below it. There's a large. You're standing 3 feet above it, so you're literally only covering a foot, if you're
So
lucky, of your midsection.
partial cover is just covering your legs with an
I think
object
partial
larger.
cover, you have to be able to cover half of yourself almost. Like
So
that's in my head. That's sort of how it works.
more than likely, if I wanted to get cover with a kitchen table, I'm going to knock it over and then crouch down behind it, right? Maybe kind of that, tactical crouch where you're still on your feet, but you're all kind of like balled up a little bit, so you can stand up pretty fast.
You also have to remember that it covers a round, which is 6 seconds. So that's crouching, that's
Yeah.
standing, that's moving, that's everything. So yeah, partial cover is just for part of that turn. You might be crouched behind it, and then you stand up for the next part of it.
Okay. Because there's also a question. There's like when you're crouched behind a table, what's the difference of being standing and being prone? If you're crouched behind a table,
Crouched is not prone. Prone is laying down.
crouch isn't a thing in raw rules.
Yes, that is
But
correct.
if I'm like sitting on my feet, okay, hiding behind a table to get us like probably 3/4 cover, if not more, okay, but I'm not prone because I'm not lying down. But yet, if I were to walk up to you behind there, you still would basically be lying down to me. You're just curled up in a ball.
No, I follow.
Yeah.
That's the reason that if you kick over a table, even if you're crouching or standing, I'm giving you partial and not half.
Okay.
I think to get half cover, you have to have something serious in between you. That's like a large oak tree. I'll give you half cover on that.
Yeah.
If you're standing behind a stone wall, I'll give you half cover on that.
Right. At the end of the day, my logic kind of falls down to shields give you +2 AC, partial cover is +2 AC. You're looking for basically anything that's equivalent of a shield size object or thing that you're putting between me and you. That's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I have to kind of go with the rules to kind of justify whether or not this thing is going to give me partial cover or not. I'm going to hide behind a wagon wheel. No.
If you hide behind a wagon wheel and the whole wagon is still attached to it with another wheel on the other side, I'm going to give you some cover.
Yeah. Yeah, hiding behind a horse is my favorite example. Especially you can see it in westerns a lot,
Yeah.
where the cowboy will be on the other side of his horse. Well, that's 3/4 cover, full cover, maybe. Depending on where you're standing on the horse. Yeah, your legs are still show, but the horse legs are still there.
I think
You know,
doesn't the Cavalier actually gets that, I think. Let me see. Cavalier D&D 5e. Because I have a player who's playing a Cavalier right now.
what, using his horse as cover?
I think so. If it might have been 3rd edition. No, it doesn't seem that's the case. They get warding maneuver. At 7th
Yeah.
level, you learn to fend off strikes directed at you, your mount, or other creatures nearby. If you are a creature you can see within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack, you can roll a d8 as a reaction, reducing the damage, blah, blah, blah. You know how that ability works. Actually, I stand corrected. I need to read the whole damn thing. You can roll a d8 as a reaction if you're wielding a melee weapon or a shield. Roll the die and add the number rolled to the target's AC against that attack. If the attack still hits, the target has resistance against the attack's damage. So that's actually better than reducing the damage because that just gives you the ability to completely negate the attack if they miss. So
Yeah.
that's not quite the same thing. I could swear, and it might have been a 3rd edition thing, or hell, it could be one of the prestige classes I've seen or something. But if you're on a mount, getting partial cover just from being on the mount.
I mean, the horse is a very big thing you can put between two people.
Yep.
Have you ever had anyone play a mounted character in 5th edition?
I have somebody playing one in my campaign currently.
Oh, I mean, you did say there was a cavalier.
Yep.
I don't think I'd ever allow it
Why is that?
because I just don't want to deal with it.
It's
I
not.
just
It's not complicated. They just
it
have a
sounds
mount.
so complicated. Yeah, now you got to kill two things. Now there's a horse in the dungeon.
A
I don't
lot of
know.
no. I mean, Cavalier is a fighter. If you read this thing, they are just a fighter. They get a few things that are based on the mount. So you get born to the saddle, which gives you advantage on saving throws made to avoid falling off your mount. You can land on your feet. Basically, you can sort of do tricks on your mount. You get the warding maneuver thing, and you get ferocious charger. Everything else is sort of just basic fighter stuff. And there have been a couple of times where my player has had the mount in combat, but most of the time they just don't. If you're in a dungeon, there's no mount there. You're just on foot.
Yeah, but I could get my horse in there.
It seems stupid, and you're likely to lose your mount.
Well, I'll get a new one. I'm rich. I'm an
Well,
adventurer.
look, hey, if somebody wants to do that, by all means, allow it. The player who's playing this likes their horse way too much, so they would never take them into that risky of a situation.
So that's what you do is you have your horse that you love, and you bring along a pony that you don't. And that way you have a smaller horse that you can ride in the dungeon and leave your nice horse outside.
What they need, they should hopefully they'll find it at some point, is the ability to just summon a mount. That way it
And be
never
a
really
paladin.
dies. Yeah, basically like a paladin. I know there's magic items where you can just pull out like a little statue and boom, here's your horse. You get a horse for 12 hours or something.
I think other classes can get summon steed.
Yeah. There is a summon steed ability. The cavalier doesn't get it. But
So yeah, at second level, you can summon a loyal steed as you summon the spirit that assumes the form of an unusually intelligent, strong, and loyal steed, creating a long-lasting bond with it. Appearing in an unoccupied space within range, the steed takes the form of which you choose, which is a warhorse, a pony, a camel, an elk, or a mastiff.
I like your DM might allow other animals to be summoned as steeds.
The steed is
I would allow others.
it's statistically chosen through its form, though it is a celestial, fey, or fiend of your choice instead of its normal type. It's your mount in both in combat and in out. When it drops to 0 hit points, leaving behind no physical form, you can just receive it as an action. Um, da da da. Unfortunately, you can't store gear on them, and like have them like come in and out.
Yeah.
It's just an animal.
Yeah, it's just a mount. Yeah, it's not. How long does it last? Casting time is 10 minutes. How long
It
does
lasts
this
until
last?
you dismiss it.
Oh, okay. Um.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if it lasts until you dismiss it, you could just throw a saddle on there. It can carry whatever you need it to.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, but you dismiss it, and then like it disappears, and the saddle is left behind.
Yeah, and then you just summon it again.
So that sounds horrible.
For honestly, for a cavalier, this sounds perfect, and I'm surprised they don't just get that spell.
Yeah, but you can't store your gear on them. If you could store your gear on it and like have it like like you were stuck in prison, like poof, here's my fine steed. All right, it's got my saddle, it's got my lock picking set, it's
I
got my
see what
break out of prison tool.
you're saying that. Yeah, okay. You're saying when you send it back that you
Yeah,
can't. Oh, okay. Uh, I don't think it summons the same spirit every time.
yeah, it is.
It doesn't say that. It says you summon a spirit that assumes the form
Yeah,
of an unusually
creating a long lasting bond with it.
Yeah, until you dismiss it.
That's not long lasting.
Well, if nobody's going to ever dismiss the steed, they're just not
Listen,
going to.
I'm going to dismiss this thing so often. It's going to be like World of Warcraft style, where I'm running between flowers and like, oh, summon steed, 5 feet, dismiss steed,
It's
pick
going to be yeah,
flower.
okay, yeah, like me in that mining up in God, I don't even remember the name of the area, but I just fly around on my mount. I jump off the thing.
Yeah,
mine, hop back, like resummon it, fly, mine, resummon.
that's exactly how I'm handling this thing.
I think there's a limitation on how many times you can do this. It's a spell. So,
Yeah, it's a ritual spell that you cast in 10 minutes.
oh well, 10 minutes seems like a long time.
I'm dumb.
I love it though. I love it.
I mean, imagine being stuck in prison and just casting Fine Steed,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Oh
just
look,
now you
my
just have a
lock
horse.
picks.
Yeah, kick out the door. It's a war horse, right?
Yeah.
It's got +4 strength. I'm pretty sure me and it can knock this door off.
Yeah. So one of my players in the previous campaign, he was a fighter who effectively had a golf bag full of magic weapons, and he could just sort of change them out depending on the necessity at the time. So if he had a steed like that, where you just has a bag of holding on it, just boom, summon up steed. All right, let's see, what weapon do I need, or what magic item? Just a bag of storing magic items. Well, I need my decanter of endless water at the moment.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Come here, warhorse.
There's an anime called Hunter x Hunter.
I've seen an episode or two of it.
Yeah, it's a very long series. But I remember there was one episode where they're like fighting somebody or someone's fighting it, but the guy's ability is that he had this roulette wheel that he could summon behind him, and then it spun, and then wherever the roulette wheel landed was the weapon he got to use for that combat. And there was anything from like like a tactical nuke to like blackjacks on it, like
That just
the
sounds
whole.
like it sounds like a Final Fantasy summon called roulette. And I could
It
see it.
kind of was.
I could just see it now. Like this very Vegas chick pops up with the roulette reel, giggles and then spins it. That's what I envisioned with this.
That's exactly what it was. And like you get like, oh, it's the shadow sword of death and slaying. Oh, it's a toothpick. All
Yeah.
right, whatever.
I gotta fight him with a spork. Come on.
Yes, with the spork of bees.
Have you ever played the game Worms?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. He had like a roulette wheel that would just give him the entire arsenal of worms. For anyone who has never played Worms, it's a pretty fun, cute little game where you play a bunch of worms trying to kill other worm teams, and you have an incredible arsenal of weaponry to do it with. Everything from just a baseball bat all the way up to tactical nukes. My favorite
Um.
one, I think, is when you put on the headband and hit him with the dragon uppercut, like straight out of Street Fighter.
Do you ever play Scorched Earth?
I can't say that I have.
It's an old PC DOS game
Back in the
from
day,
back in the '90s, where like you were little tanks and like you would have to like shoot other little tanks everywhere, kind of like Worms.
kind of like Worms. I got it. So the tanks had a bunch of different weapons they could choose from.
Yeah, but this was Scorched Earth, the mother of all games, so it was the mother of Worms.
I see. Oh, okay. So
Mm-hmm.
this was sort of the predecessor to Worms.
It's predecessor to most video games, I think.
There were a lot of games out before the 90s.
Yeah, I know, but those don't count.
I'm looking this thing up right now. That barely even looks like a video game. This looks like Defender.
Yes, right.
It is, however, called Scorched Earth, the mother of all games.
Yep.
Yeah, no, this looks a lot. Nah, is it Defender or there was another game where nukes would rain down on you and you just had to fire missiles. And it was like an old Atari game, but shoot the
Yeah,
nukes out of the air. That's what this looks like.
close.
I see why you say it is like Worms, though, because it's sort of the 2D side scrolling graphics and things dropping out of the sky, which happens a lot on Worms.
Yep. Oh. So, any good fun D&D news happen
I don't think there's any
in the
D&D
past week?
news. Yeah, they sort of like they threw everything out there a few weeks ago, and there's nothing in the news at the moment.
I mean, there's a couple good things. The advanced 5e rules are their books finally came in from overseas, so they're being shipped out here soon. So people who kickstarted that are going to get those.
You lucky bastards! I only was able to.
Haha.
I couldn't afford it at the time. I was only able to Kickstarter the PDFs. Hopefully, they will release them into stores at some point, and then I'll just go get them off of eBay or from a local store somewhere.
Yeah. So what's weird? What's weird about all this is that you said you kickstarted that and you got the PDFs,
Oh
and then
yeah,
like you haven't looked at them at all, really. You
not
haven't used
not
them.
as I have used them minimally. I went through them pretty in depth when I first got them, but it's one thing to go through it. It's another thing to use it constantly when running a campaign. I need the physical copy in front of me to do that. It's the only way I do this stuff. Like
Okay.
PDFs are okay, but when I'm writing, I don't want PDFs. I want physical copies.
Yeah. For me, I can't. If it's not in a builder, I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately.
you're literally the opposite of me when
Yeah.
it comes to stuff like that.
Like when I'm writing stuff, I'll have like a couple books up on my computer that I found or PDFs that I have because I need to swap in and see references. But I'll have the books next to me too at the same time that I'm kind of working through and managing. Um, but I really can't. I can't game off of the PDFs. Like I can't just give someone the PDFs and like expect them to figure it out. It's so much
Yeah,
better when I actually go to the actual page in the book and go, this paragraph right here is what you need to
yeah.
go to
So
and
far
read.
so far the only thing I've used them for, I've pulled monster stats from there a number of times, and I've pulled magic items from there. I
Yeah.
I haven't pulled spells from there yet, which I would like to do at some point, but I don't want to change the spells in my campaign too much just because we are really kind of sticking mostly with actual 5e at the moment when it comes
Yeah.
to character building and creation and such. Whenever I finish this campaign and start up my next D&D one, I will probably run it straight from advanced 5e, assuming I have access to the hard copies.
What's really weird is like when I'm running a game with monster stats and spells and stuff, I need to have those books by me so I can look at them so I can reference them when I need to. D&D Beyond or like a builder or if you have those that has an encounter builder that can put all the monster stats on the same screen for me at the same time, or at least so I can flip between them. And then like I just hover over like I can in D&D Beyond and see what a spell does without having to click on an extra link or anything. Just that's exactly how I want to run things because it makes
Now,
it so much faster for me to find stuff
Now, how
and
do you?
reference things.
I know that's what you do when you're running online, and I understand that because you're running online. What do you do when you're running in person?
Normally, I'll either have a laptop with my encounters built out onto it, so like it's behind my screen, like a little tiny tablet thing that I can just like scroll through and see everything. Um, so all I have to do is just move a tiny mouse around, and that's it. Or I'll just actually have the monster manual book with me, and
Got
then
it.
pray there's not a lot of spells because I don't have the DMG handy to look at the spells.
No, that's fair. I've taken to writing up, like if it's a pre-planned encounter. Honestly, all of my encounters are. Even my random encounters, I will roll them up randomly, but I'll do it ahead of time so I know what I'll need. And then I'll take all of the monster stats that I want for an encounter and I will write them up on index cards. That way I just have real quick access to it. I don't even need to go look in the monster manual most of the time because I have the stats on a card. If it's an encounter with a single monster, I'll probably just stick with the monster manual. But if I have like two or three or four monsters, I'm just going to write them all up on index cards. Makes it quicker.
Yep. What is this? The high school again? Running index cards? That is such.
I didn't do the index card thing until the past couple of years, but it works beautifully for me.
That is such a 1990s way of getting through school. I got my index cards that I wrote up last night. Flashcards.
I didn't do flashcards, so I don't get this reference.
No, it's just No one does that nowadays. They have things online. They have online flashcards.
Yeah, I can't have 4 different monster stats pulled up easily online.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't. Not where they're all right there in front of me. I have to click this, click that, click this. Oh no, I accidentally clicked the X. Shit, I have to go find that again. No, I'm good. I'll
Listen,
write it on an index card. Problem
listen, old
solved.
man. You gotta get with the times and use the online builders to make your monster manual encounters and stuff.
Yeah,
It's just a couple of clicks and a swipe and a left and an updo.
I don't feel it's necessary. It's more complicated than it needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, as I say, I have a stack of index cards right here of stats that I've written up. It's sitting next
You
to
still
me.
use graph paper to draw your maps?
Yes, actually, I do. Yes, I do. It's been working for me for 30 years. I think it's going to keep working just fine.
Just pull out your TV, man, and put it on its side and hook up a computer to it, so you can have a digital animated map that has sounds and interactive squares. Like when they touch a little figure on it, it
If I ever have a place where I can have a table like that, and I have the money to do all of that, I probably will. That's not complicated if you already have quick access to it. Not having that, then there's a lot of ways you could do it. You could do it with graph paper. You can lay out tiles. You used to print off entire maps, for goodness sakes. Like, who does that?
I do, because I have a printer.
Yeah, you had a printer big enough to print off entire maps to put miniatures on.
Yes, it's called Office Depot.
All right, yeah, so you went and paid to do that.
$5. Oh,
nobody
no.
does that. Nobody ever does that except for you.
Well, they should do what I do, because it costs $5 and you get a free map forever.
I think I would rather go up and buy a bunch of dungeon tiles, spend $100 or so, and then
you gotta sort through the dungeon tiles. You gotta rearrange the dungeon tiles,
and then I have infinite dungeons at that point.
And then you wind up with a box of just assorted dungeon tiles, and you spend 15 minutes looking for your 1x2 ladder tile that you misplaced 5 years ago.
I didn't need that ladder tile anyway.
I've been there.
This dungeon's one floor. It doesn't need ladders.
I got the T-shirt. I bought more tiles that are 4th edition you could ever imagine. Using double-sided tape, putting them together.
Cr'aig, I need you to take him out back, behind the woodshed.
No, you can take me. Take this index card writing motherfucker behind the shack.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. I think we're done here. Bye, Cr'aig.
Bye, Cr'aig.
I'm southbound and down. All my rolls are crits. It's time for me to hit the bricks.